Welcome to the Limitless Ladies Network podcast, where we are limitless in sharing lessons to advocate and drive insightful, empathetic self-care. The Limitless Ladies Network is dedicated to nourishing minds, educating on self-care, and facilitating transformative experiences. Our mission is to guide women to age with grace, cultivate good health, and build meaningful connections to bring happiness into their lives. We strive to empower the ladies of the community so they may successfully advocate for themselves and embrace a journey of holistic well-being. Please note that the information and opinions shared on this podcast are for educational purposes only and are not intended in any way to be used as medical advice. Please seek a medical professional for any health-related matters, and always refer to our full disclosure in our show notes. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Limitless Ladies Network, where we are limitless in providing lessons to advocate and drive insightful, empathetic self-care. Welcome to today's episode with my guest, Laurie Zrenda, pharmacist. All right, pharmacist and partner at Nightjar Cannabis in East Lyme, Connecticut. Laurie received her bachelor degree of science in pharmacy at UConn. Laurie has worked for 27 years, or had worked for 27 years in regular retail pharmacy before starting her first dispensary in 2014, where Connecticut finally started its medical marijuana program. She worked there for several years, and then also worked for other dispensaries before actually launching into her own with her partners at her current location in East Lyme at Nightjar Cannabis. So welcome, Laurie.
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad to have you here. And of course, there's a disclaimer that this is just for informational purposes only. We're not advising any medical information before we dig in here. But Laurie, tell us how you actually got into the cannabis industry.
Well, I was working in retail at a Rite Aid pharmacy, and Connecticut had passed their medical marijuana law in 2012, but for the first time, they were the first state, I should say, to require that a pharmacist dispense the drug just like any other drug. So I kind of saw that and thought, that's a chance to own my own business, because back in the 80s when I was in college, I always hoped I could maybe own my own pharmacy, but big chains came in and all that. So that wasn't really a possibility. So this was like that door opening to, wow, I could do something. And I didn't know much about it. I knew I had patients going through chemo and things that would use marijuana on the side to help with nausea and increasing appetite and things like that. But that was about the extent of my knowledge at the time. But decided to apply for a license and see what happened. And I did get some help from a consultant in Colorado. And we happened to win one of the only 6 licenses the state handed out back in 2013. So we opened in 2014.
Wow, congratulations. And I believe that you're one of the only women to open up a dispensary as well, right? Or the first?
There was one other lady in Bristol, Connecticut that owned a store, and I think there might have been one more. It might have been 50-50 in Connecticut, those
Wow,
first 6 licenses. Yeah.
that's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if the state did that on purpose or not.
Maybe they were just trying to be equal, I guess, but that's great. I love
Yeah.
that. So tell us a little bit about the whole cannabis in itself. I know there's CBD, there's THC for treating various different conditions. And I actually had tried it when I was suffering from an autoimmune and Lyme disease previously. So give us a little bit of background, if you could, on what the differences are.
Yeah. Over those 14 years, I've learned a lot.
I'm
And
sure
I
you
learned
have.
it not only from just trying to do research on my own, but also just feedback from people, from patients who tried different things. And it just kind of, because a lot of the information on cannabis is anecdotal. There's not a lot of research going on because it's still considered a federally illegal drug. So you're not getting true studies the way that I would hope we could get. But so THC is what most people think of when they think of marijuana. I always tell patients to keep them straight. TH for the high. THC is what gives you that euphoric feeling and that sort of thing. But it is a really good pain reliever. It helps in so many different conditions, neurologically, with nerve pain. Patients with MS and Parkinson's and ALS, and then again, it's an anti-inflammatory, so it helps with all these inflammatory conditions like rheumatoid arthritis and Crohn's disease and IBS. And it's just an amazing swath of conditions that it can help. The trick with THC is to find the dose that gives you the medical benefit you're looking for without impairing you so much that you can't go on and live your life and you want to be functional. So it's a lot about dose for people when it comes to THC. A lot of people are nervous about THC. Just because you've been told our whole lives this is a bad thing. You go
Right.
through school and that's what they're telling you. Um, THC is a non-toxic drug. You can't overdose and die taking THC. No humans ever died of an overdose. It's it's safe in that regard. High doses, you're going to feel euphoric or high, or too much, you're going to feel paranoid or out of control, and it's very scary when people overdo it. So, the big message with THC is just to start really low, and gradually increase so that you feel comfortable. CBD is generally extracted from hemp plants rather than marijuana plants. Marijuana has trace amounts of CBD, but it's primarily a hemp derived product. And CBD is non-euphoric or non-psychotropic or whatever you want to call it. So you're not going to have to worry, no matter how much CBD you take, you're not going to feel high. But it does help with nerve pain. It helps with inflammation. It's relaxing, so people find anxiety relief with CBD. So it's definitely something in the repertoire to throw in there and give a try at if you're having issues, because it's not going to impair you. High doses will really just maybe relax you a little too much and you'll feel too tired. But that's about the worst of it, besides dry mouth with both THC and CBD. That's as far as the side effect goes. And there's other cannabinoids in the plant too. There's over 100, I believe, different cannabinoids in the plant, and
Wow.
some have some minor effects as well. Like when you go to the dispensary, let's say, and you're looking for some sleep relief, or to help with sleep, you don't want to be relieved from it. You want to get some sleep. Um, there's CBN. CBN is what happens to THC as it ages over time. It converts chemically and it becomes CBN. And CBN is very sedative. So you'll see a lot of sleepy gummies and things like that that have both THC and CBN in them. CBG gets a little bit, there's some gummies that have CBG in it. It's an anti-inflammatory and it's got kind of a happy, uplifting feel to it without a high. So sometimes in the more uplifting gummies, you'll find some CBG. Even some seltzers that are out for sale that you see in liquor stores and stuff that are all derived from hemp will have CBD and CBG in them. So there's a lot of different cannabinoids that you can play around with and see if it makes a difference in what you're putting together for your dosing.
Yeah, when I went through my autoimmune, it was spondyloarthritis, which is, a form of arthritis, and it was pretty debilitating. So I was on a combination of those. I had mints, basically, a couple different kinds of mints, and some were to help me to sleep. And then I had a couple that were to help me to function throughout the day. And then I had some that I could take, just for the pain relief of things. Plus, I was also on some other prescribed medication from my rheumatologist as well. But um, I do agree with the dry mouth symptoms because I do remember having that. I didn't take a lot of it. I mean, it seemed to work okay. And I also had the topical creams, which I thought were really helpful with like the arthritic symptoms in my hands and other areas that were really troublesome at that time. So, um, great products. It's amazing to me that it covers so many different um, a lot of them autoimmune, like lupus and other things that you mentioned, right? That it actually really helps to alleviate a lot of the issues that people are having around those. But again, at the same time, I guess that's getting back to our our ancestors probably knew this, right? And looking at it's a plant, and they knew all of the benefits of being able to use it for, healing properties. So I think that's great. How would you explain, or what would you suggest to a woman before she actually dives into trying this? Is there anything important that you should?
One thing that a lot of people don't realize, and it even wasn't even discovered until about the 1980s, that we have a receptor system in our body called the endocannabinoid system. And our body actually creates its own endocannabinoids. The plant THC and CBD are phytocannabinoids that are derived from a plant. Our body creates, there's a couple different ones. Anandamide is one. When our body's under stress or in pain, our body releases these molecules and they bind to receptors in the endocannabinoid system. And the whole purpose of the endocannabinoid system is to create homeostasis or balance in our body to try to fix whatever might be wrong.
Right.
And so it's really kind of fascinating. Like people kind of associate marijuana with narcotics, and they don't bind to narcotic or opioid receptors. They bind to these endocannabinoid receptors when you use the plant products. So just understanding that our body's almost geared for this in a way is kind of fascinating. But to start off, you just want to understand those ingredients that you might be taking. Understand that THC might impair you. So anytime you start with a really low dose, make sure you're giving it a period of time, see how that dose made you feel. If it didn't give you any of the results you were hoping for and you weren't feeling high, then you can go ahead and notch it up again, a little while later. It depends if you're smoking or eating, how quickly you should redose, because it's very different. So you have to understand, how does it work when you smoke it versus how does it work when you eat it? Because when you inhale it, you feel the drug very quickly. It goes right from your lungs to your bloodstream. So the effect is pretty rapid within minutes. When you inhale it, though, it also gets metabolized and out of your system a lot quicker. So it only lasts 2-3 hours and it kind of wears off. If you eat something, the whole idea of absorption and digestion and all that, it's going to take maybe an hour to kick in or so. Some people quicker, some people longer. It all depends on their own metabolism. But when you eat it, you want to give it time. The mistake a lot of people make is like, oh, my friend gave me some brownies and, I ate one, and, they're so used to smoking maybe and feeling it quickly that 10 minutes later, they're like, oh, well, that's not enough. And they start taking more. Well, they haven't even gotten it into their bloodstream yet. So they end
Right.
up overdoing it and then being like, whoa, when it kicks in. So you always start low and you give it that it stays in your system probably 6 or 8 hours when you eat it. So you want to make sure that you're giving it 6 or 8 hours before you add more. So you can really evaluate how that first dose made you feel. And then if 8 hours later you want to go up a little bit, then you go up a little bit. Most adults start with 5 milligrams of THC. But if you're nervous, you can start with 2.5. There's no harm in starting as low as you care to start. And some people are lucky and they get a really good result with a low dose. Some people don't absorb it as well as others. There's an enzyme that helps us to metabolize the marijuana products. So I've had customers be like really high with 5 milligrams of THC. And I've had someone take once, I remember we had 200 milligram capsules in the medical program.
Wow.
And guy came in and was like, I don't feel anything. And it's like, well, then edibles are not for you because it's so expensive when you get to those high doses. It's just not worth it if you're not getting a result, if you're taking that much. So there's such a wide range. It would be great if it was like Tylenol, where it's like, yeah, 1 tablet every 6 hours and that's it. It's so different for everyone. So you have to understand that too. Some people will come back in after trying something the first time and say, well, that didn't work. And did you increase the dose? And they'll say, no. And that's the problem. You really have to understand that it's going to be different for everybody. And you have to be patient and experiment a bit. But once you find what works for you, then you might find a lot of success.
So a question that I have, going back to how it kind of binds to certain receptors. If there's long-term use of this, does your body, because you mentioned that it automatically, our system kind of creates those things to keep us in balance. If there's long-term use of it, does it end up depleting or like reducing our natural ways to be able to kind of help get to homeostasis?
Yeah. I honestly haven't heard a lot about that, like a tolerance building kind of
Yeah.
thing. Patients that have come into me, I don't hear a lot about, oh, well, now I have to take more and more and more. So
Yep.
I don't see it in the real world. But again,
Okay.
there's not a lot of studies. There's no studies really. I mean, there might be a few out there. And there's definitely certain universities that might be funding it themselves, but like government funding is not a thing for marijuana. So it's just
Right.
not researched the way it should be.
Right. Is there a certain process to go through? And I think it may have changed. So when I had to go through it, I had asked, um, actually my rheumatologist suggested, throw out a wide net to kind of
Hmm.
help figure out what my symptoms were and get me relief. And he goes, take marijuana if you want. And I was like, well, where do I get me some? And he actually wrote me a prescription. And then I had to go and speak with, someone like you, I think, like a pharmacist, basically. I think that was like, okay, what is your diagnosis? What are all these things? And then I had to apply for a um, state license or
Certification. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
like a permit basically, so then I could go in and get that, those dosages and then talk with somebody once I got there. Is that
Hmm.
process still the same? I mean, it's been, 5 years probably now.
Yeah. Um, if for a medical card, a medical provider, either a doctor, a PA, or an APRN, can register you for the program. So
Okay.
they go to the state website and they tell the state you have this diagnosis, and then the state emails you the application for the card, and you have to fill that out.
Yep.
And then hopefully you have a dispensary with a pharmacist where you can go and sit down with somebody and actually talk about what your situation is and all that, and have someone help you choose the right products. Um, in Connecticut, now that it's recreational, you don't have to get your medical card first to experiment a little. If you want to experiment a little bit, you can go into any dispensary and buy some products. The problem is there may not be a pharmacist in the store.
Mhm.
Connecticut changed the law. We used to have to be there every hour, every minute we were open, there had to be a pharmacist. The Connecticut changed our laws recently to there's only a certain minimum number of hours required to be in the store. And remotely we can check the medical orders. So just like in the pharmacy, a pharmacy technician might fill the order, but the pharmacist has to review it before it's sold. So now they're allowing that to be done remotely in Connecticut. So a lot of the bigger chain stores might not have they've reduced their pharmacist staff because they're trying to save money. And so there may not be somebody to talk to. So you could always call to a store to see if there is a pharmacist to have a consultation with once you do get your medical card. But even on the recreational side, the people at the counter might have some limited knowledge and might be able to guide you, but it's probably better if you could find a dispensary that has a pharmacist in the store to just, because even as a recreational, I'll talk to recreational customers all the time when I'm there. I'm happy to help them rather than have them talk to just some, they call them bud tenders, who may not have quite as much knowledge when it comes to the medical side of things.
I think that's great information to have and access to you, right? To know that these are the different nuances that you'd want to be aware of in trying them and like the dosages and things like that. Because even for me, I had this card and I'd never really used marijuana, maybe one other time recreational in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I had no clue what I was in for, and the dispensary was just huge with all different types of things. Like you said, there's edibles, and I got mints, and I got, various different things you could smoke, which I didn't want to do, but it just kind of blew my mind. So you walk in and you're like, what do I pick here, right? Do you have some type of a protocol that you go through to say, okay, well, you have these are your symptoms, sort of, or what you're looking for, and then just try to match up. You must know certain things will help alleviate those type symptoms.
Yeah, there's definitely been, a little bit of a learning curve for me from the beginning as far as, and just getting feedback from people is huge. Um, but if it's a pain situation, I love to see someone do both THC and CBD combined. I think working together, you get a better result than just THC alone. A
Mm.
lot of people, and I also try to gauge, what's the person's experience level. Like you said, you hadn't really used a lot, and a lot of people are scared to even walk in the door and ask questions. So we try to make it as comfortable it is for people to be able to just spend time at the counter and talk if they want to. But if someone's super nervous, then try just CBD first, see how you do. If it's not enough, then next time come in and try a really small dose of THC along with your CBD and play with it. It's such an experiment because it is so different for everybody. But in a pain situation, I really think CBD is so beneficial, and people will write it off. Oh, I don't want that, because some people have been smoking forever and, well, that's not going to get me high. I don't want that. But you don't realize what a really good addition it could be if you have a condition that's especially nerve pain related. It can make such a big difference.
It does make a big difference. That I do know personally because that really did help me. The creams, some of the mints, like I said, that I was taking, it really did help. And for me, I was more apt to want to try some of that because I knew that it was more of an all natural product versus taking, some pharmaceutical pill that they had admitted would give me cancer in 5 years. I was like, I definitely want to stick away from that, where I feel like if I take this all natural option, it's very less likely that I'm going to have any side effects or issues. So,
Yeah, it's really about kind of overcoming the stigma a little bit. People, I remember there was a doctor once that came in and he had had migraines a long time, and he wanted to come in our back door. He didn't want anyone to see him. He was so nervous, and he really didn't buy it, but his neurologist told him to try it. And he really had great results with just such a low dose, like 3 milligrams of THC and maybe
wow.
10 or 15 CBD, but it really did make a difference with the migraines. And it's so fun to me when when people do open their minds up and just give it a shot and know that, it's not like you're going to get totally blasted into outer space. You could find a dose that works where you're not impaired.
Right. And there's so many different dosages, I'm sure, that you can adjust, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And people have to kind of adjust it at home on their own too. You might buy a 20 milligram CBD gummy, but you might find you needed to take two, or whatever before you kind of got the relief you were looking for. So
Yeah, and I think that's kind of nice that it puts a little bit of the control in the person's hands where they can say, I tried this and I waited the extended period of time like you suggested, and it just didn't seem to have an effect. So I can try a little bit more without knowing, again, that I'm not really going to be overdosing on the issue. It's just going to be something that might help so you can adjust as need be.
yep.
It's
The
nice
big
to have.
message there is if you're increasing THC, you're going from 5 to 7.5, or you're going from 7.5 to 10. Every time you do that, make sure you're home and you're not jumping in the car. And because when it hits you, you don't want to be out somewhere where you're not comfortable. So you just want to stay home whenever you're playing around and increasing the dose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What would you suggest for some of our audience listeners that are going through menopause or any stages really of any lady that's going through menstrual cramps to post-menopause, right? There's
Yep.
a lot of things we deal with hot flashes and night sweats and mood swings, like those types of things. So have you found that this product, because I haven't used it for that,
Yep.
has it been
So I'm
beneficial?
61. I've been through it all. Um, the most common thing I think it helps with is the sleep. For me personally, I was a great sleeper my whole life. And then after menopause, I just had a harder time, even though like there's nothing on my mind, cut it out, go to sleep, stop thinking about that, whatever. And you're just going crazy. So 5 milligrams of THC and I sleep at night. And I pretty much sleep through the night. If I get up to go to the bathroom, I fall right back asleep because it's still kind of circulating in my system because it does last about 8 hours. So I think sleep is the number one thing we find real success with. I was kind of researching a little bit to see about the night sweats or the hot flashes and that sort of thing. And I found an article that said 47% of people felt it helped, but again, it's hard to tell if they had it in their head that it was going to help or if it really did or it just didn't happen to happen at that time, or it's hard to say. I don't hear a lot about that part of it. For mood, some people do enjoy that little bit of happy relaxation if you can find the dose that puts you in just the right place. Not too out of it, but not normal, just kind of a happy place with your dose. I would imagine it could help with mood as well. um, and cramping for sure, because it is an anti-inflammatory. So what are they prescribing if you have really serious cramps? They're giving you ibuprofen or another anti-inflammatory. So high CBD, maybe low THC product might definitely help with cramping.
It's amazing. It's like a wonderful,
Kind
all
of is.
natural thing, right? Like, is there anything that it doesn't help with that you
Oh
know?
my God. I have to think about that. Because
It seems
even
like it
with
would be a shorter
cancer,
list, right?
yeah. But
And
even cancer, it's just it amazes me. Like I had a really good friend that had prostate not sorry, pancreatic cancer. And even though I'd been doing this for 10 years, she would not try it. And it broke my heart because I know it wasn't going to cure her pancreatic cancer, but could it have made her more comfortable, while she was going through it? Because with cancer, I mean, you're dealing with anxiety, which it definitely helps. You were dealing with pain, perhaps you're dealing with the side effects of the chemo or when the nausea
yes,
and not being able to eat and keep up your strength. So it's just such a great drug for someone when they're going through something like that. It was really tough not to convince her to try it. The stigma's out there still, and it's pretty strong for some people.
it is. I mean, and that's kind of why we're having this discussion, right? Is to bring some awareness to this all natural product. It's a plant that has been around forever and has had such good benefits for people.
Mhm.
I mean, laundry list that you've mentioned, right? I've even heard, it's good for seizures. There was, I don't know if it's still called the same. I think when I was looking into it, my daughter has seizures. And so I was looking into it years ago and thought, oh, well, Charlotte's Web. I don't know if it's called the same.
Yep, that's a strain. Yeah.
Yep.
Charlotte's Web's a high CBD marijuana strain, so it has both THC and CBD
Okay.
in it in significant amounts. Um, they named it after this little girl, Charlotte, who had such seizures. I mean, she was almost basically unconscious most of her days.
Wow.
It was so bad. And this one particular grower in Colorado developed this strain that had a really high CBD level because CBD is what they are finding is helping with seizure control. This actually, the big pharmacy got into it, and there is a pharmaceutical product called Epidiolex that they use for certain types of seizures.
Really?
And it's just CBD. That's all it is. And but that was FDA approved and it's used. And
Really?
yeah, yeah,
Wow, that's
because
great.
it's yeah,
I'm glad to see that pharmaceutical companies are actually kind of getting on board with supporting that and not squashing it because that is something that would potentially, I guess, be taken away from all their other seizure meds, right?
right. I mean, as far as legalizing marijuana, there's probably a big lobby against it from the pharmaceutical industry because you
I'm
can't
sure.
patent this plant. There's so many varieties and strains. That's probably a whole other discussion. But
Right.
yeah, they probably wouldn't love if it became federally legal. I'm going to imagine the pharmaceutical industry might be the ones holding it back.
Right, right. Um, yeah, I'm just glad that it's becoming more and more mainstream, right? It's something that we can all kind of like you said, come in and try if we're struggling with certain things and see if it works or not, right? And I love that there's someone with your background that's pretty much on staff full time to ask questions.
Yep.
That's wonderful. So, are there any products, I guess, that you would find that are unsafe for us to try? Like, have you come across any? I mean, I know that your stuff should be all good quality stuff, right? But I guess we should always caution people about not going to like someone,
Guy on the street corner.
some guy on
Yeah,
the street corner
I
in
know this
order to
guy.
get it right. I mean, it's really important that people should go to the right place to know that
Yeah.
it's good
I
quality.
mean, most states have regulations concerning lab testing to make sure the products are clean. Connecticut, in particular, doesn't allow pesticides in the grow. So there's
That's
no
big.
pesticides used. You're not inhaling something else along with the plant. It's tested for mold. It's tested for heavy metals. All these things that you don't want to have, and it's tested for the strength, so you know exactly what you're getting. A lot of people still buy from, I know this guy who grows and I've known him forever, and that's probably fine. But is he spraying it with pesticides? I don't
Right.
know. You're not probably lab testing it because lab testing is expensive. So you don't really know the strength of what you're getting. So if you're making something homemade and edible or a patch of brownies out of a plant that somebody gave you, and that's a process. But if you do know how to do it, you don't really know how strong they are when you make them. So it is nice to have that controlled, I guess, just well-regulated product that you know what you're getting and you can feel good about it.
I agree because those things, mold is just so bad for us, can cause cognitive issues, can cause respiratory issues. Pesticides can cause lots of neurological
Yeah,
issues and psychological issues too, right?
especially if you're immunocompromised with the mold. And
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. So it's great that that is kind of the regulation that those things are being tested. So that should help us all to feel like we
mhm.
can be confident walking in knowing that it's good quality stuff.
Yep.
Are there any stories that you can think of that were significantly impacted by someone taking cannabis?
Yeah, in the very beginning, I had a patient, a lady who worked in the Twin Towers and was there on 9/11. And so she was a 9/11 survivor, serious PTSD. Um, and she would just come in and just rave about what a difference the cannabis made in her life because she felt, like it just gave her that sense of calm that she could go out there in the world again. I mean, and she became kind of a nice little friend, over the years, which was great. She was just always so appreciative and that the program was legal and that she could do that. There was another lady I remember who had a skin cancer, and she was just taking the pure cannabis oil in the medical program. You can buy just syringes of oil. You can't get that recreationally, but in addition to what her doctor was doing, with whatever products she was using, through the standard stuff, she was putting the oil directly on her skin. And the doctor, I remember she came in and said he was surprised how quickly it was resolving, that he had never seen anything resolve so quickly because there was a lot of evidence that CBD and THC have anti-tumor effects.
Mm,
And so, little things like that, it's so gratifying, to see little successes like that.
absolutely. I mean, it just gives us the proof that this is something that we will see results, right?
Hmm.
That's fantastic. This has been wonderful, Lori. If there's one piece of advice that you could give to a woman out there who's suffering from menopause, autoimmune disease, like anything like that, what would you suggest?
Yeah, I would just say, don't be afraid to go in and ask questions, see if there is a pharmacist in the store. Um, in other states, I suppose there might be nurses or somebody else in the store, who knows? Um, and don't be afraid to, or even ask if there isn't, maybe ask for a manager who might have been around the block a few times and might have a little more knowledge, but ask someone to really take time and talk with you if you have concerns. But the number one message is just start low. And don't be afraid to increase it, because the people who come back and say this didn't work, it's like, don't give up, just experiment with it. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But I really don't, I see a much more majority of people that it helps than it doesn't help. So
Fabulous. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate you being on our show and sharing this information with our audience. Where can people find you?
Nightjar Cannabis is in East Lyme, Connecticut, and I'm happy to talk on the phone, even if you don't live anywhere near me. If you want to call and ask for me, I'm happy to talk. So it's just kind of become a really good passion of mine to be able to help people feel better. So
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah.
Our audience should definitely take advantage of that for sure. I want to thank everybody for listening, and of course, give us a thumbs up, like us, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And visit our website at limitlessladiesnetwork.com. Sign up for our email list. It'll pop up once you're on the site after just like 30 seconds or so, and you can sign up for our email list. Follow us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and also again on our YouTube channel, where you can find lots more episodes on various different topics. And of course, check out our events that we have coming up. I have quite a few that are coming up. Actually, one this Friday on sleep and strategies, all natural for doing that. And, maybe I need to add in cannabis into that list.
THC.
THC in there. So this has been great. Thank you again, Lori.
Of course. Thank you.